Okay, so this is roughly what we're going to talk about tonight. A little bit about why in the heck we knock doors anyway. I think a lot of people ask that question, especially now that we live in such a social media virtual world. Why are we even still doing this? Um, who exactly are the people whose doors we're knocking on, and why them? What happens when someone actually answers the door? Um, and how do you stay safe? I think that's, understandably a number one issue for so many people right now. And so I think that's obviously a very important topic to cover. So why are we knocking on doors? Like I said, look, it's the social media age. It's the cell phone age. Why are we still doing this? There's so many different ways that people communicate. There's so many different ways that we can reach out. The bottom line is, and I think we all know this intuitively, right? Nothing beats direct person-to-person contact. We know a phone call is better than a text. We know actually sitting across from someone and talking is better than a phone call. And I really think that's what door knocking comes down to. If there's nothing, more grassroots than knocking on doors and talking to your friends and neighbors and folks that you don't even know yet. It is still effective, especially when it is combined with other forms of contact. So it is part of a much larger grassroots organizing plan. So you're not just knocking doors. The people that you're talking to aren't just hearing from you at the door. They should be getting mailers. They might also be getting a phone call. They're hopefully going to some candidate events and meeting the candidate in person or some other organizing events in the area. And so it's those multiple contacts and those multiple introductions and discussions about the candidate or whatever your cause is that are going to motivate them to get out and vote for the person that you're supporting. There are different reasons to canvass right now. At this point in the political cycle, we're canvassing because we want to elect Democrats in November. But depending on when you're participating in the election cycle, you may be canvassing just to get a better understanding of issues that voters are interested in. So for example, if you're a candidate and it's early in your campaign and you kind of want to know what issues you should focus on, you may knock doors of your, solid base just to find out what's top of their mind. And there may be other reasons to canvass as well, depending on if you're canvassing for a candidate or for an organization and what your goal is. Obviously, it raises great awareness about the candidate and your organization. So we live in Atkinson. It's a very, very red town. When you knock the door of another Democrat in this town, they're usually thrilled to see you, and they're thrilled to know that there's an Atkinson Democratic Town Committee, and they're happy to know that they're not alone. It demonstrates that you as a person and the organization or the campaign that you're working for are committed to voters, and you're committed to the community that you live in. It does help drive voter turnout, and it does get better candidate results. In other words, better, more, it helps you win. And especially I was trying to find some good statistics about, what is the percentage increase in people who were canvassed? And I saw like 4%, 6%, some of it was more, especially if it was in conjunction with other forms. But, in a race that we know is going to be super, super close, you're literally talking about, especially in a town like ours, if you get 50 more people out to vote for your candidate, that's going to help elect Dems right here in our town and also up the ballot. So it's really important. And it just says so much. I just think you being out there, feeling so strongly and being so so dedicated to whoever the candidate is or the cause that you're supporting, that means a lot to people. It's impressive to have an actual live person come to your door and talk about who the candidate is that they believe in and why you're supporting them. And I think you will find people respond to that, they respect it. And, people will say to you, wow, you're the first person that's come to my door. I know people voted for me because I was the first candidate that actually knocked on the door. Not enough people voted for me, but it's very, very powerful. And it makes you as an individual very powerful. It multiplies your own individual power um, in the electoral process. Whose doors are we knocking on? So these lists, you will get a list, and these lists are very, very heavily curated, meaning they're specifically targeted to a subset of voters, again, for whatever reason. Depends on who the candidate is, what the campaign is, and what the purpose of the door knocking is. So when you show up to vote to door knock, it used to be that you would get a paper list. And you may still get a paper list, but now it's your cell phone. This is what and I don't know if you can see my screensaver, but this is what you're going to use to door knock. It took, I don't know, for me, I was a little dubious about it at first because I like paper and I like lists, but the app that is used, it's called Minivan. And let me just, gonna stop share. Oh, I lost myself here. Bear with me. Oh, can you still see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it possibly might be frozen.
Oh, great. You know what? My screen is not responding. Okay. I can't. Michael, could you do me a favor and post the minivan training link in the chat? For some reason, I can't get to the chat. So I don't want to go into a training about minivan. I think it's pretty intuitive to use, and it allows you to very quickly record data, which is part of your job when you're knocking on a door. There is a really good training video for minivan that Michael's going to put the link to in the chat. And it's a good idea to download it before you show up for a Canvas launch. But the voter list that you get in minivan is going to be a small subset of whatever the target group is. So for example, right now, you're probably going to be knocking a lot of Democrats and undeclared voters, and maybe a few Republicans who are considered persuadable for the purposes of this election. You're not going to be, you're not going to be knocking every house on a street. You're going to be knocking certain houses that have been chosen for a very specific reason. Political party, political affiliation, age, sex. A lot of campaigns now, they can pull in other data when they're curating these lists. So, and I can honestly say over the years, I think the quality of the lists has gotten better. They're more accurate. And I think they're more, the identification has gotten a lot more refined. So these are very specific people, and they've been chosen for a very specific reason. In our case, there's a lot of Republicans in the area where we are. And you'll probably see some Republicans on that list, but we shouldn't be knocking hardcore Trumpers. These are people who we want to make sure they get out to vote. And if they're persuadable, we want to get them to vote for our candidates. When you get your list, it should be subdivided into a reasonable geographic area of houses or dwellings that you can cover in, say, maybe 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes the people who cut these turfs, they're called turfs, sometimes they do a better job than others. So, but it should be, I would plan on being out for maybe a couple hours, or thereabouts to do your turf. When you look at the list, you'll be able to see the names of the people. Obviously, you should see their ages. It'll tell their political affiliation. And you'll also see oftentimes there's more than one person at one house. So, and you'll be able to see who those people are. As I said, we're likely going to be knocking a lot of Dems and undeclared voters, at least here in Atkinson. Those will be our main group. Before I move on to what happens when someone actually answers the door, this is the most important thing to take away from this tonight, as far as I am concerned. Just leave whoever you interact with a positive impression of yourself and whoever the candidate is that you're representing. The next slide has a whole bunch of stuff on it that you should do when someone answers the door. But you are going to meet people, they're living their lives, right? A lot of time you're going to be knocking doors on the weekend. You're going to find people running off to take their kids to soccer practice, getting ready to go up to the lake. You're going to meet people who are still in their robes and slippers, who are out front a mess from doing yard work or remodeling or something like that. You just have to be prepared to go with it, whatever kind of situation people are in. A lot of houses, and probably more than half, people aren't even going to answer. And so regardless of the circumstances, just remember, even if you only talk to someone for half a minute, you're going to leave them with a piece of information, right? So they're going to have this piece of information about your candidate or candidates. When they look at it later and remember you were there, you want them to think, oh, well, she seemed nice. Or, oh yeah, he dropped this off. He seemed like a nice guy. If that's all they remember, fantastic. You don't want to annoy people, or just, you just have to be polite. Be polite and be sensitive to what their circumstances are. Okay, now here we go. When the door opens, if it opens. So I should preface this by saying one of the first big decisions you'll have to make is, which door do you even knock on? Because many people have more than one door that seems like it could be their main door or their front door. And I just say go with whatever your gut tells you is the most frequently used door. And a lot of times doorbells don't work. If you try the doorbell, it doesn't work, knock a few times, try to knock pretty loudly. And when they come to the door, just, I just think it's so important just to be yourself, right? And that's why you're going to make an impression on them, because you're a real person. You're someone who lives in their town. Maybe you live a couple streets over, and you're actually taking the trouble to knock on their door and talk about something that's really important to you. So you smile. You're going to have your list there, and hey, I'm looking for John Smith this morning. Is he in? And let's assume he's in. And so you're going to get into a discussion, hopefully. I find it's very, very important, if you live in town, say that early on in your conversation. I'm Kate. I live over in town. I live over on such and such a street, or I live here in Atkinson. And I'm out here today because I'm supporting Michael Boucher, and we're just talking to voters about the upcoming election. We want to make sure you know how important it is. And as you go on, you're gonna kind of develop your own style and like a way of introducing yourself to people that works. There will be a little script with your voter list. And the script is helpful. It gives you a little blueprint to follow. But you don't have to read it verbatim, and don't be a slave to it. Again, the most important thing is that you have a positive interaction with these people. So just take it as a guide, I guess.
Question, if I may. When we say follow the script, this is on the phone,
Yes,
am I right? Okay.
yes, there'll be a little script, and it's usually something very basic, like, hi, my name is whatever, and I'm out talking to voters today about the election coming up. Are you planning to vote? Or, what's the most important issue to you? Or have you decided who you're voting for yet? It's usually pretty basic, but you can use it as a jumping off point.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
I would say personally, it's pretty, like when Kate said it's pretty basic. It's like so basic that you probably won't end up using it most of the time. You'll
yeah.
probably just end up finding like something that works best for you as you keep knocking on doors.
Yeah, I think that's really true, Michael. And the other thing is too, going back to what I had said earlier, you have to kind of you obviously have to meet people where they're at. And, a lot of people, first of all, very few people are rude or nasty. Most people, but that doesn't necessarily mean they want to talk to you for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? And so, they may just say, "Oh yeah, yeah, great, that's great. That's it. I gotta go." Okay, bye, thank you. It's okay if you don't get through the whole thing. Um, Listen more than you talk. Occasionally, well, hopefully more than occasionally, but you will have opportunities to actually, engage with people for a few minutes. And it's really important to listen to what they're saying. A lot of people want to be heard. A lot of people, especially if they're Democrats in town, don't have any other Democrats to talk to. So, they're looking for an opportunity to talk with someone who's like-minded. And don't get into anything contentious. Your job, you're not going to convert someone or who's a hardcore Trumper. Don't go down that rabbit hole. That's not what you're there for. So just don't um, disengage yourself, or just don't even let that happen in the first place. Be honest, be genuine. If someone asks a very specific question and you don't know the answer, just say you don't know and say you'll find out. If they say, well, do you know where Michael Boucher stands on XYZ bill? Or how would he vote on XYZ? And you're not 100% certain, just say, I honestly don't know, but I'll find out. You will on the minivan app on your turf. There's usually some questions that they want you to ask, and they want you to record the answers if you can. Now, a lot of the time, you're not even going to have a chance to ask these questions. But a lot of the time, they'll ask you, are they, supporting Kamala Harris? It'll say strong support, might support, doesn't know, will not support. So they're going to ask you, when you conclude your conversation, to fill in those kinds of questions. Sometimes there's a few other ones that they want you to record. And the great thing about minivan is you just can punch those in right away. back in the olden days with paper lists, you'd have to take them back, turn them into some poor soul at the campaign office who would then have to sit and data enter this stuff. And half the time it didn't even get data entered. So this way you're directly inputting information into this voter database, which is really, really crucial. And that's one of the reasons why, as I said, the lists I think have been getting better over the last few years because they have a lot more consistent data collection and it's a lot more accurate. Lowry.
My gut impulse would be not to be like, looking down at my phone and entering stuff while I'm meeting with them, right? Like walk back to the car and do it, or
100%.
walk down the street and do it.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And I'm still in favor. I like to, we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but I like to have a clipboard. I still like to have a clipboard with paper, a pencil, or a notebook, because there will be times when you want to write things down, like if someone does have a very specific question that you want to follow up on, or, maybe you just want to make a note that there's a nasty dog at this house. Don't go there or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there may be things that you want to write down that you're not necessarily going to put in minivan. And I also think that you're exactly right, Lowry. Like you don't want to be standing there just looking at your phone. That's the last thing that you want to be doing. You want to be able to focus on the person in front of you. So yeah, when you get back to the car before you go to the next house, you can just take, a minute and punch in whatever the responses are. So we talked about record the data that you gather, be respectful of people's time and circumstances, and also just remember your schedule. I mean, every once in a while you will find someone who really wants to talk, and you could stand there for an hour. And if you want to, that's fine. But just do be aware that you have other houses to get to. And, maybe if it's someone who's really interested, ask them if they'd like to share their email address to get on the local Democrat committee email, to get on the local email list, or to get on the campaign email list, something like that. And then they can stay connected with the campaign. Okay, staying safe. So, for obvious reasons, I think this has become, obviously a very important topic and concern. And I know Michael and I have talked about this, and, I really feel that unless you're super comfortable going out by yourself on doors, everyone should be going out in pairs. And I'm not saying that because I've had any particular issues. I really never have. I mean, I've had a few kind of, I guess, a handful of times where I was kind of like, that was strange, but I've never had an experience where I really felt overtly threatened. Nevertheless, I think it just makes sense to go out in pairs. And both people don't even have to go to the door. It's great if one person drives. It makes it a lot easier for the person who's knocking. So canvass in pairs. Look, you're a volunteer. If it feels weird to you, just don't just skip the house. If you get a weird feeling, just skip it. If you get to a house and every once in a while you'll get to a house and it's just, there's a lot of junk in the yard, or you can't even figure out how to get up to the door or whatever, just skip it. If there's a big dog that looks nasty in the front yard, and this has happened, if the dog is really sizing you up and starting to growl, and you're just, don't go. It's fine. Okay. There is an option, I think, on the turf where you can put that the house is inaccessible, or and maybe you even want to make a little note, because you can make notes on minivan that you feel safe or whatever. Not obviously stick to daylight hours. I think we're mostly going to be canvassing on weekends during the day, usually midday. But if you do happen to be canvassing later on, I know of people who will keep canvassing when it gets dark. I won't, and I don't recommend that. I wouldn't appreciate it if someone knocked on my door after it gets dark. So pretty sensible, just stay out in daylight hours. If possible, wear something that kind of identifies you as a campaign volunteer. If you have a button, a sticker, a t-shirt, or like I said, carry a clipboard and maybe stand there, make your little pamphlet visible so when they come to the door, they can see that you're representing a candidate. A lot of people know this time of year they're going to be getting knocks like this, so they shouldn't be surprised. But I know in our town, I feel like people are really suspicious of anyone who comes to their door. So it's just good to be identifiable right away if you can be. Don't go to houses with no trespassing signs. Skip them. If someone asks you to leave, leave right away. No questions asked. If you come to a place where there's no soliciting signs, and a lot of times these are condominium communities, and when you are knocking on doors, you are not soliciting. You do not need a solicitor's permit. You are not selling something. You are practicing free speech. So if you see a no soliciting sign, that does not apply to what you are doing. Having said that, and again, this is kind of common sense, and you'll get a vibe. I have knocked in sort of condominium developments where there technically no soliciting and have had no problem. Last campaign, I was knocking at a condo development in Atkinson, and it had a no soliciting sign in front, but I went in, and door after door, people were telling me, "You're not supposed to be here. You're not, there's no soliciting. We don't, no, I know you're political, but no, you're not supposed to be here." And it happened to be enough, especially because I was the candidate. I thought, you know what? The last thing I need is people posting nasty things about me on the town community page, right? Because we all know how that goes, you know. So if you really feel like there's pushback, again, just say, look, this isn't, again, you want to leave people with a positive impression. If you feel like people are going to be posting and saying some jerk from Michael Boucher's campaign was knocking doors here, even though he's not supposed to be, or whatever, just it's okay. And then just, again, very practical, bring water and snacks if you think you might get hungry. I mean, you're going to be doing a good bit of walking depending on what the turf is like. So just be prepared to stay energized and hydrated. So just some final thoughts. How to, what to wear. Just dress like someone voters would want to talk to. I mean, there's, jeans, there's no specific dress code, but again, you're representing a candidate, so you want to look nice, but casual and normal, doesn't require anything overboard. I mentioned before, bring a clipboard and or a notepad to take notes. It does make you look more official. The clipboard is a good place to clip your leaflets to keep them from falling all over the place. It gives you a place to rest your phone so you're not holding it or staring at it while you're talking to people. As we said, less than half people are going to answer their doors. If a third of the people answer their doors, you're having a really good day. Most people are not rude. Most people are at least polite, and a number of people will be very happy to see you and appreciate you coming. If you do not have someone answer the door, you will leave your piece of literature or pieces. Sometimes you might be carrying more than one. And you can leave it stick it under the door latch or in the door, hopefully somewhere visible where people will be able to see it. We talked a little bit before about, having a quick little intro sentence for yourself about who you are and you're from town and what you're doing knocking on their door. If you're going to get comfortable with it, you're going to kind of get into a groove, and it also, it's also going to depend what the circumstances are when somebody answers the door. If you do run into a harried mother who's rushing her kids off to dance class or something, just say, "Oh, look, I see you're in a rush. I'm here, I'm Kate. I live down the street. Can I just leave you some information about this candidate?" Or if someone's working outside or you're tired or the kid's crying, just be sensitive to what is going on with the person that you're talking to. You talked about leaving a flyer, and I also already mentioned you do not need a solicitor's permit because you are not soliciting, you are practicing free speech. Yes, Lowry.
I haven't done much canvassing, but I've done a fair amount of leafleting for candidates. And one thing I've done, I don't know if it's especially helpful, but if nobody's home and I'm leaving something, I'll bring like like a flare or, like a mark, a fine point marker and I'll just write like a note to the person on the side of the leaflet when I leave it and just sign it with my name, even though they probably don't know me. But particularly if there's multiple people living at the house, but it just seems like it makes it more like look less like a piece of junk.
Yeah, I love that idea. Yep, that's a great idea. Thank you for that. So this concludes our formal presentation.